All right, so this is our fourth lunch and learn, which is quite exciting. We've got Mina Hasman, who is a leader in sustainability and has a wealth of knowledge. And she's going to be talking about her work with the climate framework, which is a really useful resource, and hopefully you guys will find it useful as well. But she's going to explain how to use it and why it came about. If you've got any questions, keep them to the end and we can go through them. We've got a few minutes then. And if you've got any afterwards, we'll give you an email that you can send them to as well. But that's enough for me. Mina has a really interesting presentation, so I will just pass on to her, and she's got a little presentation, and yeah, we'll go through some questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Let me quickly start sharing my screen. Making sure that everyone can see my screen well. Perfect.
Yeah, looks good.
And when I do that, perfect. So thank you so much for inviting me to join you today to introduce the Climate Framework Initiative. I would like to perhaps start by stating the obvious, but it is worth iterating that many challenges we have been facing around the world over the years have been demanding a realignment of our focus and priorities within the built environment sector, but also as well as reevaluation of our knowledge and skills, which are the underlying factors of competence. A competence very much needed to deliver on the challenges we're currently facing and will continue to do so in the future. And at the heart of these challenges really lies a perplexed dichotomy, I would say, of time and scale. The scale of the positive impact we need to deliver and the rather limited time frame we have been given by the climate change scientists. This begs the question is, do we have enough capacity within the sector to deliver on this ambition and to consistently and continuously address and evolve the sector, address these challenges and evolve the sector in the coming years? So we know in this equation, we need multifaceted solutions with very much embedded with holistic responses that are delivered fast and at scale. And in this picture, a single entity of any organization or even individual will be challenged to make a difference. And therefore, it's essential for us to come together as a collective to make this leap across the industry and transform the sector to address the multitude of challenges we're facing, as I mentioned before. So as a group of volunteers, we came together 2 years ago, almost at the very beginning of the pandemic, and asked the question is, how do we deliver on the UN 2030 Sustainable Development Goals? Or if we want to be more specific on the net zero ambition, when within the sector, the knowledge is not uniform or consistent, and also when the knowledge is treated as a one-off unilateral knowledge transfer, rather than as a consistent and continuous flow of knowledge that is built on a common set of fundamentals. And our immediate response was that consistency is of essence when we talk about knowledge and skills within the built environment sector. And that, as I mentioned before, the collaboration is a must in this equation, not only for the success of our industry today, but also for a thriving future for us all. And this is exactly the mission we have embraced within the Climate Framework Initiative, where we're cross-pollinating experiences and expertise across the sector by embracing different disciplines and professions, and also creating a shared curriculum framework, as well as a platform for climate knowledge. This has been developed over 2 years in consultation with more than 690 individuals across the global built environment sector and academia, and currently supported by more than 95 organizations all around the world. And in this transdisciplinary effort, we really are bringing together multi-generations and uniting the built environment sector and academia, which is the first in the scale that we're trying to achieve here, in order to upskill and build our collective capacity for climate action. And here, we're not really trying to reinvent the wheel or create anything from scratch, but rather amplify and shine a light on what already exists out there in the industry. Our intent is to leverage industry's experience and expertise and draw on these existing invaluable resources and bring them all together in a central knowledge pool. With the cross-industry action group, which you see the members of here who are voluntarily committing to this initiative, we have representatives from various organizations, professional institutes, member organizations, academic institutions, and even private practices. And we're working together to build a global network and a true community of individuals and organizations that are uniting to advance this agenda forward. And in this united and very much coordinated action, and I would say a very concentrated effort we have been progressing over the last 2 years, our aim is to really break down silos that commonly exist within the industry, and really to define a common ground and build a common language around climate change. And many of you may experience, when we talk about net zero carbon, many of us may mean different things and cover different scopes within the same project team, for example. So it's our fundamental, I guess, aim is to really create this common language so we understand each other, so that, and also we can build the knowledge and skills against these common understandings moving forward. And I think our aim is also, it's worth iterating that our aim is very much also to build this fundamental and holistic knowledge and skills. This is our mission that we've embraced for every actor within the built environment sector in order to equip themselves with the right knowledge and skills so that they can deliver truly sustainable built environments today and also in the future. We acknowledge that the long-term success of this initiative very much relies on the wide and unanimous adoption of the structure that we have created. And the success of it is also very much relies on its direct link to academia and collaboration with academia, where the fundamentals of knowledge are primarily delivered. And therefore, with this initiative, our second part of our mission is to really align expectations and create a thread of knowledge between academia and industry in order to ensure there is continuity and consistency in the way knowledge is built, disseminated, and built upon throughout different stages of a built environment actor's life. And in this way, we're able to close the feedback loops very much needed for the advancements of our sector by bringing the know-hows of the industry into the next generation of built environment professionals' core education, but also by leveraging the best academic research. We're informing the progress and help deliver the innovation the sector continuously needs. So how does the climate framework look like? So the structure is very much underpinned by the vision and mission of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And I would say it's actually contextualizing the UN SDGs within the built environment sector and focusing specifically on the goals that we can directly impact by the work we deliver within the built environments.
Sorry,
So
Mina, your camera's just disappeared, just to let you know. Oh, there you go, you're there now.
Perfect. Sorry, apologies for that. So I was just mentioning that how does the climate framework look like? So the structure is very much underpinned by the vision and the mission of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And I would even say that it's very much contextualizing the UN SDGs within the built environment and focusing on 6 overarching themes that are very much directly linked to the goals that we can directly influence within the work we deliver within the built environment sector. And as you can see, these 6 main overarching themes are presented here in 6 bubbles. And these are supported by an introductory section of global context and fundamentals that maps out the essential background knowledge around global research, policies, initiatives, and commitments that relate to climate change. And this is then followed by a section that is called the built environment section, built environment context, that actually takes that global knowledge and makes it very relevant to the built environment landscape. And the framework is also supported by a section which we find quite crucial, as we call it common threads. So this section includes topics such as retrofit or climate justice or designing for procurement, disaster risk resilience, and performance and so forth, among many other topics that we feel are so critical that they need to be referenced under each overarching bubble or the theme, and from a different specific perspectives and angles that are very much needed. And at the heart of the framework lies this 6 topics, as we call them, outcomes. And this section of the framework really outlines the key concepts we must all embrace and consider within the work we deliver within the built environment sector, including also the teaching that takes place in academia. So it's very relevant to the academic curriculum as well as the continuing or lifelong learning programs in the industry. And each of these 6 themes are then further sort of detailed with 5 subtopics that reflect the breadth of the richness and the depth each overarching theme embraces and represents. And we also recognize, while we were developing this framework, we recognize that there is a varying degrees of level of knowledge and skills across the sector, including the academia, among the teachers as well as students. And therefore, the climate framework adopts a tiered structure in order to build unique learner's journey, and also to enable content creators or educators to build specific learning outcomes and build the content that are very much curated to address those learning outcomes. So in this tiered structure, we have tier 1 is targeted for individuals who have very little or no knowledge about the topics that are covered within the climate framework. And the purpose of this learning content that are provided at this level will be for individuals to have sort of general awareness and knowledge at a very high level of those subject matters that are listed. And tier 2 will be for individuals who have some knowledge, but who may want to add to their knowledge, but also more specifically sort of gain industry-specific experience and knowledge around these subject matters and understand how they're applied in real-life projects. And the aim, therefore, of this level of content will be to enable individuals to apply the knowledge that they gather through the framework and through the content that they go through into their day-to-day practice. And this can be both in terms of practice on projects in the industry, but also practice in terms of delivery of education content in academia. And lastly, the tier 3 level of content will be for individuals who have quite decent amount of knowledge about some or if not all of the subject matters listed within the framework, and may want to build expertise. And the purpose of this level of learning will be to develop a well-rounded knowledge base, and also more importantly to sort of acquire specialist skills around some of the key subject matters listed within the framework in order to drive strategy and change. And these individuals we would eventually consider climate experts. And if I can sort of lay this thinking onto the climate framework structure, the overarching themes that you have seen before that give a high-level overview of the climate framework topics are tier 1 level topics, and anyone at this level, if anyone is at this level of knowledge and skills and experience, then we would call them climate aware. The further granularity or the detailing of the overarching topics into 5 subtopics represents the detail that any practitioner or academic would embrace and include within their day-to-day work. And at this level, we would call individuals climate adopters because they're adopting that knowledge and applying them into their day-to-day work and practice. And the further detailing of those 5 subtopics, which are also consistently structured in the same manner with 5 subtopics, that we would categorize them at tier 3 level, and individuals at this level will become climate experts. And I would say, as part of this initiative, we realized that in the interim period, the key challenge, while building knowledge and skills may take time, in the interim period, it's so essential to direct and guide individuals, both in academia and in industry, to the right and valuable content for their purpose and needs. And because there's a plethora of amazing content out there, but it's also a plethora of content that people become inundated and may not find their ways to really reach the right level of knowledge and content and resource that they may find most valuable for their day-to-day work. And therefore, as part of this initiative, we also have created an open source library that is purely signposting to all this existing amazing content that I mentioned before that are done by various organizations, including MESH and many others that we are seeing being produced on and on. And our aim with this initiative is that all the varying professional institutes, member organizations, private practices, and even individuals, and I would even dare to say even the government bodies, adopt this common universal structure that we have created, and that we continuously consult on, because we understand that the topics listed under the umbrella of climate change require consistent review as science and and practice bring new insights on an ongoing basis. So even though we're presenting a climate framework structure today, we very much believe that this will be in forever consultation with the input that we gather from all around the world, because our ambition is that this framework becomes the one universal framework, like the UN SDGs are for everyone, that this becomes the main framework to be utilized as a starting point, as the foundation for everyone to upskill and build capacity around climate change. So our aim is very ambitious. We've been working on it for the last 2 years, but our aim is that various organizations and individuals adopt this framework as a starting point, as I mentioned before, by the end of this year, and use it to build their customized and very much appropriately detailed content according to their members, to their constituent needs, and also area of focus and expertise. So we acknowledge that this is not a one-size-fits-all approach, that the topics listed within the framework may have different weighings for different professionals and different practitioners, but we encourage everyone to use this as a starting point, so that none of the core topics that that many of the consultees around the world, over 690 I mentioned before, over the last 2 years have confirmed are the essential topics to be covered. And this is exactly, just to give an example, this is exactly what the Royal Institute of British Architects have done here in the UK, where they have literally adopted the climate framework as their sort of the mandatory competence requirements for climate literacy. And they turn this what they call their climate literacy mandatory competence knowledge schedule that you see on the screen today. And what the RIBA will be doing is that they will be demanding their existing members and new members in the future who may want to join the RIBA to pass an exam on all these topics to ensure that they are climate literate. And this is almost very much also encouraged and supported by the UK's Construction Industry Council, announced in their Climate Action Plan, which was launched last year, and where they actually define this expectation for the professional institutes across the UK, at least, to adopt the climate framework and to build their CPD programs, lifelong learning programs, for their members and their relevant constituents. And I would say, I actually would like to conclude by saying that that we hope you will be interested in joining our network and our community and support this very timely initiative, which we believe is so crucially put in place today and continues to grow, because it's essential to upskill and build capacity. And this need for upskilling and capacity building has never been in a greater demand than it is right now. And I would encourage all of you to visit our website and also contact us on the details that are provided here. We'll be more than happy to connect with you, to help you in your upskilling and climate sort of knowledge building journey. This is also a scope that we cover within our volunteer group of individuals, and we'll be more than happy also to hear your suggestions for our growing climate library, which currently has more than 500 resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mina. That was really interesting. We got a little bit of time if anyone has any questions. But the one thing I was wondering, so obviously you've got all these resources, how do you get them? Are people sending them in at all? Would that be something useful for our members to know, if they've got useful resources that have helped their practices, to send them to that email you had on your PowerPoint slide?
Thank you very much, Catherine. I think that's a great question. We definitely have on our website, we have a link where people could suggest resources, and that link, sorry, will guide them through on how to sort of fill out the form, so that we can also appropriately help us categorize the resources. Because in our library, we have filters where you could suggest, or all the resources are structured around audience types, media types, and also tier types. So if you would think a source is for high level content, then you would pick tier 1. If you think it's much more expert level content, then you would pick tier 3. And then you can also identify the category of audience the resource will be most relevant to, even though we acknowledge that some resources are shared among different topics, sometimes on all the topics, and sometimes it's relevant for the wider group of stakeholders within the built environment sector. But we strongly encourage and suggest the resource providers to be able to categorize the content rightfully for us, and then we upload eventually on our library.
Okay. Is there a particular category you are wanting to like fill up at the moment, or is it whatever you got, whatever our members have they could pass on?
It can be anything and everything, because we constantly want to build this library and be the one place where everything gets signposted. And in the way that we're also signposting, I think this is worth for your members to hear that the reason why we chose to signpost instead of hosting those content is because we want the framework to be this place where it actually connects to the wider industry and academia globally. And it's important to shine a light on amazing organizations such as Mesh Energy and others that are doing a lot of work. And so we're trying to direct people to the website of those organizations as well in the process, so that they can investigate more beyond that one resource they may come across the Climate Framework's website.
But that's a really good idea.
Help answer the second part of your question, because over the years we've been also hunting for a resource, and also as well as getting support by others to suggest these resources for our library. And we realized water and connectivity and transport are the two topics that miss the most content.
Interesting.
So ones that have the largest content gaps, and therefore if you have any suggestions for those categories, we would greatly appreciate it.
We've just got 2 questions, and I think we'll only have time to go through 2. So one is for Pablo, saying, I wanted to ask, which type of companies are you working with, I'm assuming, and is there any example close to architectural design?
Of course, and in our we currently have 18 individuals that are part of our cross-industry action group I mentioned before. We're all working on a volunteer basis. This is our side project, I would say, because we're all practitioners and or academics. And the individuals include individuals such as myself. I'm an architect, practicing architect and engineer. So I work for an international architecture engineering firm, and also engineers that are working for various consultancy firms, as well as heads of training or sustainability within the professional institutes such as RIBA, SIPC, and others, and academic institutions. So academics that are also part of this voluntary group of individuals that are trying to advance this initiative collectively. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does. We've got one more from David Lees. One topic that appears to be missing is national resilience. Is this a topic that you would add? The current global situation has brought this overlaying consideration to the forefront.
Great question. Thank you so much for that, David. And actually, resilience is one of our common thread topics. So in our presentation, we did not get to capture all of them for the brevity of the presentation today. But if you would not mind visiting our website, and there is a very much more detailed structure of the climate framework, and that has hopefully as many topics as we think. At least there is not just the industry group, but the almost close to 700 individuals that have contributed to the development of this framework. I believe should be in consensus, should be covered.
Amazing, that's brilliant. Well, you've answered all our questions. We'll be sharing this as well on Meshwork and on YouTube for all of our members to hopefully adopt this and use this by the end of 2022 to help you reach your vision, which will be brilliant.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Greatly appreciate your support on this as well.
No problem. All right, I'll end it here, but thanks for everyone attending. Looking forward to our next one. All right, bye.
Thank you.